The Translator's Confession. There was a woman in Montreal who spoke 7 languages and understood none of them. Not literally. Ania Bélanger was a professional translator, fluent in English, French, Polish, Russian, Arabic, Spanish, and Mandarin. She could shift between them mid-sentence if needed, her brain cataloging syntax and idiom with the efficiency of a well-organized library. But understanding and comprehension were different things. At 31, Ania had built a successful freelance translation business. She worked from her apartment in Mile End, translating everything from legal documents to literary novels to medical research. She was fast, accurate, and expensive. Her clients loved her because she delivered perfect work on impossible deadlines. What they didn't know, what no one knew, was that Ania had spent the past 3 years translating a secret. A secret so large, so consequential, that the weight of it had been crushing her slowly, like a stone placed on her chest that grew heavier every day. And she had no idea what to do about it. It had started with a routine job. A Polish pharmaceutical company needed their clinical trial documentation translated into English for FDA submission. Standard work, good pay. Ania took the contract without thinking twice. The documents were dense, pages and pages of medical terminology, test results, safety protocols. Ania worked through them methodically, her fingers flying across the keyboard, her mind shifting between Polish technical language and English regulatory requirements. Then on page 47, she noticed something, a discrepancy, a number that didn't match between the safety report and the efficacy data, small enough that most translators would miss it, would assume it was a typo or formatting error. But Ania had what her grandmother used to call the translator's curse. She noticed everything, every inconsistency, every place where language tried to hide truth. She flagged it, sent a query to the client. Please confirm this number appears inconsistent with earlier data. The response came back within an hour. Number is correct. Please translate as written. Ania translated as written, but something nagged at her. She went back through the documents tracing the discrepancy. And slowly, very slowly, a pattern emerged. The clinical trial data had been manipulated. Not obviously. Not in a way that would be caught by someone just reading the English translation. But the Polish source documents told a different story than the one being prepared for FDA submission. The drug they were testing, a medication for cardiac arrhythmia, had more serious side effects than the official reports indicated. 3 deaths during the trial that had been attributed to unrelated causes. Test subjects mysteriously dropping out at statistically suspicious rates. Someone had carefully, systematically hidden this information in the language itself, relying on the fact that FDA reviewers would read only the English translation, not the Polish source. And Ania, translator, had just become an unwitting accomplice to fraud, that could kill people. She should have reported it immediately to the FDA, to medical ethics boards, to someone, anyone who could stop this drug from being approved. But Ania didn't, because, and this was the part that kept her awake at night, she had a non-disclosure agreement, a contract that said everything she translated was confidential, that revealing client information could result in legal action, loss of her business, financial ruin. And because this was worse, she wasn't entirely certain she was right. What if she was misinterpreting the data? What if the discrepancies had legitimate explanations she didn't understand because she wasn't a medical professional? What if she destroyed her career and a pharmaceutical company's reputation over a mistake? Judgment reversed, she thought, remembering the tarot card she'd drawn that morning 3 years ago. Judgment upright was about reckoning, about truth revealed, about the moment when everything is called to account. But reversed was about avoiding that reckoning, refusing to face truth, self-doubt that prevents necessary action, fear of being judged that keeps you from judging what needs to be judged. That was Ania, trapped in reversed judgment, unable to sound the trumpet, unable to call the truth to account. So she'd done nothing, had delivered the translation, had been paid, had watched the pharmaceutical company submit to the FDA, had checked the news obsessively for months, waiting to see if the drug would be approved, if people would be harmed, if her silence would have consequences. The drug had been approved. It was now on the market. And Ania carried the weight of that knowledge every single day. She tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice, that she'd been protecting herself, that she wasn't a doctor or a regulator, just a translator, just someone moving words from one language to another, that it wasn't her responsibility to police her clients' ethics. But the rationalization felt hollow, because Ania knew languages, knew how truth could be hidden in translation, how meaning could be shifted by choosing one word over another. She knew that she had seen something real, something dangerous, and she'd chosen her career over other people's lives. The guilt manifested in strange ways. She became hyper-vigilant about her other translation work, checking and rechecking everything, terrified of missing another hidden truth. She stopped taking pharmaceutical contracts altogether, told clients she was too busy, made excuses. She developed insomnia, started drinking more than she should, avoided her grandmother who had sharp eyes and would know immediately that something was wrong. She tried therapy, told the therapist she was stressed about work, couldn't sleep, felt constant low-level anxiety. Didn't mention the real reason, didn't mention that she was living with the knowledge that her silence might be killing people and she still wasn't doing anything about it. "You seem very critical of yourself," the therapist said after 3 sessions. "Very harsh in your self-judgment." "Maybe I should be," Ania said. "Or maybe you're avoiding a decision by making yourself feel bad about not having made it yet." Ania stopped going to therapy. On a Tuesday in November, 3 years after the translation, Ania received a new inquiry. A journalist wanted to hire her, needed someone to translate Polish medical documents related to a pharmaceutical investigation. Good pay, tight deadline. The journalist's name was Karolina Nowak. She was writing an exposé for Le Devoir about pharmaceutical fraud in clinical trials. And the company she was investigating was the same one Ania had worked for 3 years ago. She stared at the email for 20 minutes. This was it. The moment Judgment had been trying to arrive at for 3 years. The reckoning she'd been avoiding. The universe, or fate, or whatever you wanted to call it, putting the choice directly in front of her again. She could take the job, could help Karolina expose what Ania had known for 3 years, could finally do the right thing, even if it was 3 years late. Or she could decline, could stay silent, could protect herself and her business, and her comfortable lie that she wasn't responsible. The Page of Swords appeared in her mind. She'd been drawing it constantly the past few weeks. The Page of Swords was about new ideas, about sharp thinking, about the courage to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable, but also about being young in your understanding, about not having all the answers, about the anxiety that comes with knowing something important but not knowing what to do with it. That was Ania, holding a sword she didn't know how to wield, knowing truth but paralyzed by doubt about her right to speak it. She closed the laptop without responding. That night, Ania dreamed about her grandmother. Babcha had been a translator too during the Cold War, had worked in dangerous conditions, translating for dissidents, for underground publications, for people whose words could get them imprisoned or killed. Language is power, Babcha used to say. Every word you choose, every truth you reveal or hide, that's power. And with power comes responsibility. In the dream, Babcha was young again, sitting at a desk covered with papers. You're carrying something, Dream Babcha said. Something heavy, a truth you're afraid to speak. I don't know if I'm right, Dream Ania said. I don't know if I have the right to... The right? Babcha laughed, sharp, knowing. Since when does truth need permission? Since when does responsibility wait for certainty? But what if I'm wrong? What if I destroy everything over a misunderstanding? And what if you're right? Babcha countered. What if your silence is allowing harm? Which mistake can you live with? Ania woke with tears on her face. She called Karolina Nowak the next morning. I can help you, Ania said, but I need to tell you something first. I need to confess something. They met at a cafe in Plateau. Karolina was in her 40s, with gray-streaked hair and the tired eyes of someone who'd been investigating corruption for decades. Ania told her everything. About the translation 3 years ago, about the discrepancies she'd noticed, about the pattern of data manipulation, about her NDA and her fear and her 3 years of silence. I should have reported it then, Ania said. I should have done something. But I was afraid. And now, her voice cracked. Now the drug is on the market and people might be getting hurt because I said nothing. Karolina was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out a folder. You're not the only one who noticed. Inside were medical reports, adverse event filings, letters from doctors questioning the drug's safety profile, case studies of patients who'd experienced serious complications. The pattern you saw 3 years ago, Karolina said. Other people are seeing it now, in real-world use. The drug is causing problems exactly where the hidden data suggested it would. I've been building a case for 6 months. But what I've needed, what I couldn't get, was someone who could prove the clinical trial data was manipulated from the beginning. Someone who saw the source documents. She looked at Ania directly. You could be that person. Your testimony about what you saw in the Polish documents, that could be the key to exposing this fraud, but she paused. It would mean violating your NDA. Testifying in court, possibly, making yourself visible, taking the risk you've been avoiding. Would it help? Ania asked. Would it actually stop people from being hurt? It could trigger a recall, force the FDA to reassess, hold the pharmaceutical company accountable. Carolina's voice was gentle but firm. But Ania, I can't promise you won't face consequences, legal action, damage to your reputation, other clients dropping you out of fear their confidential work might be revealed. So I could lose everything, Ania said. You could, or, Carolina smiled slightly, you could find that doing the right thing, even late, even imperfectly, is worth more than protecting a career built on silence. The Ace of Cups appeared in Ania's reading that night. New beginning, emotional opening, love and compassion flowing, but also vulnerability. The cup is offered, open, exposed, no protection, no armor, just the willingness to let feeling guide action. Ania sat with the card for a long time. For 3 years, she'd been locked in her head, analyzing, rationalizing, doubting, using her sharp translator's mind to construct arguments for inaction. The Page of Swords trapped in anxiety, holding the sword but afraid to use it. The Ace of Cups was offering something different. Lead with heart. Let compassion override fear. Act from love for truth and care for the vulnerable, even if it costs you. Judgment Reversed had kept her frozen, afraid of being judged, afraid of judging incorrectly, caught in endless self-doubt. But what if judgment could be upright? What if this was the moment for reckoning? Not perfect reckoning. She'd already waited 3 years, already failed her first test. But reckoning nonetheless. Truth called to account, even imperfectly, even late. The Page of Swords could learn to wield the blade, could use sharp thinking not to rationalize inaction, but to cut through to what mattered. People were being harmed. She had information that could help, and fear of consequences didn't absolve her of responsibility. The Ace of Cups could open, could let compassion flow, could choose vulnerability over safety. Ania picked up her phone and texted Carolina, "I'll do it. I'll testify. Tell me what you need." The next 6 months were the hardest of Ania's life. Working with Carolina, she documented everything she'd seen in the Polish documents. Faced legal threats from the pharmaceutical company. Lost clients who didn't want to be associated with someone who'd violated an NDA, regardless of the reasons. Watched her income plummet. Faced whispered judgment from other translators who saw her as having betrayed professional ethics. But also worked with lawyers building a case, connected with doctors who'd been raising alarms about the drug, met patients who'd been harmed, people with names and faces and families, not just abstract casualties of her silence. "Why did you wait so long?" one patient asked her. His name was Gabriel, and he'd had a stroke while taking the cardiac medication. survived but with lasting damage. I was afraid, Ania said honestly, and I convinced myself my fear mattered more than the truth. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't act sooner. Gabriel studied her for a moment. But you're acting now. Too late. Better late than never, he said. That's what my grandmother used to say, and she was usually right. The article ran in Le Devoir in March. Pharmaceutical fraud. Hidden in translation. Whistleblower reveals data manipulation in clinical trials. Ania's testimony was central. Her documentation of the discrepancies between Polish source documents and English translation provided the smoking gun Karolina needed. The pharmaceutical company denied wrongdoing, threatened lawsuits, hired crisis management teams. But the FDA opened an investigation. Other journalists picked up the story. Doctors started filing adverse event reports they'd been sitting on, emboldened by evidence that their concerns were legitimate. 6 months after the article, the drug was recalled. A full audit revealed exactly what Ania had seen 3 years earlier: systematic manipulation of safety data, deaths attributed to unrelated causes, adverse events downplayed or hidden. The pharmaceutical company faced massive fines. Several executives were charged with fraud. And Ania faced a decision about what came next. Her translation business was essentially dead. Most of her previous clients wouldn't work with her. She'd become, in professional circles, either a hero or a pariah, depending on who you asked. She could rebuild, could try to reconstruct her career, could leverage her whistleblower status into new opportunities, speaking engagements, consulting work, maybe teaching. Or she could do something different entirely. Ania found herself unexpectedly working with NGOs, medical transparency organizations, patient advocacy groups, journalists investigating pharmaceutical fraud in other countries, people who needed translators with both language skills and the courage to speak up when they saw something wrong. The pay was less than her old freelance work. The hours were longer. The emotional toll of constantly working with evidence of human suffering was heavy. But for the first time in 3 years, Ania could sleep. "You're different," her grandmother said one Sunday over coffee. Babcia was 87 now, sharp as ever despite her body's increasing frailty. "I feel different," Ania admitted. "The guilt's gone," Babcia observed. "Not gone, but..." Ania searched for words. "Transformed, maybe. I still feel terrible about the 3 years I stayed silent, about the people who were harmed because I said nothing. But I'm doing something about it now. I'm using my skills to help instead of just translating without caring what truth I might be hiding." "The Page of Swords grows up," Babcia said, smiling. "Learns to wield the blade, stops being anxious about having sharp thoughts, and starts using them to cut through lies." "You know tarot?" Ania asked, surprised. "I know many things you assume I don't," Babcia said tartly. "And I know that Judgement Reversed can become upright, that the reckoning you avoid will eventually arrive. Better to meet it on your terms than to have it forced upon you." "I waited 3 years." "Yes, and that was wrong, and you know it was wrong, and you've made amends as best you can." Babcia took her hand. "But Ania, self-punishment isn't the same as accountability. Accountability means changing your behavior, means doing better. You're doing that. Let yourself feel the Ace of Cups now. Let your heart be open, not just to guilt, but to pride in what you're doing, to connection with the people you're helping. I don't know if I deserve to feel good about it. Deserve? Babcia laughed. Since when does feeling require deserving? You're human. You made a mistake. You're correcting it. You're helping people. Let yourself feel that. Let the cup fill with something other than regret. 2 years after the recall, Ania was invited to speak at a medical ethics conference in Geneva. Standing on stage in front of 300 healthcare professionals and researchers, she told them about the translation, about noticing the discrepancy, about 3 years of silence, about the moment she finally chose truth over safety. "I'm not a hero," she said. "Heroes act immediately. Heroes don't wait 3 years while people get hurt. What I am is someone who made a cowardly choice and then eventually found the courage to unmake it." The Page of Swords, she continued, is about sharp thinking, about seeing what others miss. But seeing isn't enough. You have to act on what you see. And that's the hard part, especially when acting means risking something you value. For 3 years, I lived in Judgement Reversed, avoiding reckoning, doubting my right to speak, afraid of being wrong, afraid of being judged, afraid of consequences. And that fear, that very reasonable human fear, allowed real harm to happen. The Ace of Cups offered me a different choice. Lead with heart. Let compassion override fear. Be vulnerable enough to act without certainty, without protection, without guaranteed outcomes. I'm standing here today because I eventually took that choice. Too late for some people, but not too late to help others. Not too late to use my skills to expose fraud, to demand transparency, to translate truth instead of hiding it. She paused, looking out at the audience. If you see something wrong in your research, in your institution, in your field, please don't do what I did. Don't wait 3 years. Don't let fear paralyze you, because every day you stay silent is a day someone might be harmed, and you'll have to live with that. But also, her voice softened. If you've already waited, if you've already stayed silent, it's not too late. Judgment reversed can become upright. The Page of Swords can learn to wield the blade. The Ace of Cups can still open, still offer love and compassion, still choose vulnerability over safety. The reckoning will come. The only question is whether you meet it as someone who found courage, even imperfectly, or as someone who never tried. The applause was thunderous. After the conference, a young researcher approached her. She looked nervous, holding a folder against her chest like armor. "I saw something," the researcher said quietly. "In my lab's data, something that doesn't match what's being reported. And I don't know what to do. I'm just a postdoc. I could be misunderstanding. And if I speak up and I'm wrong..." "You could lose everything," Ania finished. "I know, I've been there." "What did you do? How did you decide?" Ania thought about her 3 years of silence, about Gabriel and his stroke, about all the patients she'd never met who'd been harmed while she rationalized her fear. "I asked myself which mistake I could live with," Ania said. "Speaking up and being wrong, that would cost me my career, my reputation. But staying silent and being right, That was costing me my humanity, and I realized I'd rather lose the career than lose myself. She pulled out a card and wrote her contact information. If you want help figuring this out, someone to look at your data with you, someone who understands the fear and the weight of this choice, call me. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you that you're not alone, and that speaking truth, even when you're terrified, is worth it. The researcher took the card with shaking hands. Thank you. Ania watched her walk away, another page of swords, holding a blade she didn't yet know how to use, standing at the edge of a choice that would define her. And Ania hoped, desperately hoped, that this young researcher would be braver, faster than she had been, would choose truth before fear became habit, would let the Ace of Cups open before 3 years of judgment reversed, calcified into permanent silence. That evening, Ania walked along Lake Geneva, watching the water reflect the mountains. She pulled out her tarot deck, worn now from constant use, and drew 3 cards: Page of Swords, Ace of Cups, Judgment, all upright this time. Sharp thinking wielded with courage, heart open and offering love, reckoning met with honesty. She'd earned these cards, not easily, not quickly, not perfectly, but she'd earned them. The translator had learned to translate her own truth. The page had grown into her blade. The cup had filled with something other than guilt. And judgment, long avoided, long reversed, had finally arrived. Not as punishment, but as liberation. The truth was out. The work continued. The heart was open. And Ania Bélanger, translator, whistleblower, person learning to live with both her mistakes and her courage, was finally speaking her real language, the language of accountability, the language of compassion, the language of truth told even when it costs everything, even when it's late, even when it's imperfect. Because better late than never, better imperfect than silent. Better to sound the trumpet of judgment and face the reckoning than to spend a lifetime avoiding the call.